An elderly Thai immigrant dies after being shoved to the ground. A Filipino-American slashed in the face with a box cutter. A Chinese woman slapped and then set on fire. 8 people killed in a shooting rampage across 3 Asian spas in one night. As horrific as all of these incidents sound, there's also one thing that's common in all of them. Anti-Asian racism is not new in the United States, but the COVID-19 pandemic just made it worse. Our next report telling you about a new poll that focuses on America's racism epidemic. Take a look.
On March 11, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a pandemic. And soon after, terms like self-isolation, quarantine and lockdown became a part of our lives. But COVID-19 was also fueling the spread of another disease, and that is racism.
Talk to those 17 people.
Despite ongoing advocacy and legislation to combat anti-Asian racism that emerged after the pandemic, a new poll from AAPI data and the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research finds that about a third of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have experienced an act of abuse based on their race or ethnicity in 2022, including being at the receiving end of verbal harassment, slurs, physical threats, or cyberbullying. The poll also finds that at least 14% of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders believe they have been the victim of a hate crime almost every day, while around half, that is nearly 51%, believe racism is an extremely or very serious problem in America. Throughout American history, the topic of race has been a contentious issue. About 2 in 10 Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders say they have experienced being verbally harassed or abused, and at least 22% have been called a racial or ethnic slur. About 1 in 10 also say they have been physically assaulted or threatened, and about a third of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders say they often or sometimes face discrimination because of their race or ethnicity when applying for jobs. It's been nearly 4 years since the pandemic altered our lives. And since then, shocking racist attacks against Asian Americans have occurred frequently in the United States. For instance, in July 2020, in New York City, an 89-year-old Chinese American woman was slapped in the face by 2 male strangers on the street. And when she tried to escape, the men set her clothes on fire from behind. America's historic division over race remains at the heart of so many conflicts we see today. The path forward, fraught with racial, political and social tension, should address the rising public health threat of violence towards Asian Americans. Public opinion data clearly shows that this problem is too great to ignore. More must be done to stop racism and hate. Evaluate emerging strategies and identify the best practices. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.